I hesitate to, because he's got everything right so far. I still think no deal is dead.
No deal it would appear to be dead.
Yes.
And the reason I'm saying that is because going by the strategy now that Boris Johnson is adopting, by putting to one side the DUP signing up to this deal without their support, he will be in a position on Saturday to put his deal to Parliament. And if the DUP do not vote for it, then we would assume the government does not have the support for his the Prime Minister's deal, and therefore we would also assume that the government would lose a vote on an amendment for a second referendum. But crucially, and this is really important, what would then take place is there would be a second referendum on Boris Johnson's deal versus Remain, not on Theresa May's deal versus Remain. And whilst we're talking rightly about...
So this is quite bold. I haven't seen this. So you think developments thus far today have increased the likelihood of another referendum?
Yes, because he's leaving the DUP behind, and therefore you'll also see it may not be a very large chunk, but it will be a chunk of the European Research Group. He won't be able to win them over.
Well, they've a lot of them have said they'll do whatever the DUP does. They'll follow the lead. I think Brexit hardman Steve Baker said that last night.
Mark Francois, Ian Duncan-Smith, Owen Paterson all said, well, we're looking towards the DUP. They
just explain why that is. What is that strand of conservatism that would prioritise the DUP over?
It is the Conservative and Unionist Party. And it is inherent in their DNA to say that they are the party that supports the Unionist cause in Northern Ireland. And the reason it's important is that they have worked hand in glove well before this confidence and supply arrangement came about in 2017. And whilst more middle of the road Conservatives might be prepared to say that, they certainly would say that they do not subscribe to unionist politics and unionist views, the right of the Conservative Party has always been very closely aligned to the DUP. And that's crucial. We're not talking about a split just along the lines of Brexit, or a relationship just along the lines of Brexit, James. We're talking about a relationship that goes back years.
And blood has been spilt in unprecedented.
But the reason this is important is because if there's a second referendum, it will be on Boris Johnson's deal versus Remain. And whilst we're talking about Northern Ireland, it is important to remember that Boris Johnson's deal is markedly different from the actual deal that Theresa May put to the House of Commons 3 times and lost.
Well, it's measurably inferior to that deal by most Brexit measures, but that doesn't matter, because the facts, and I don't mean this as a pejorative, I've said a million times, feelings are as important as facts in many ways, but the facts disappeared. The facts left the building a long time ago. Boris's most slavish supporters will be hailing him a hero for pressing rewind on what Theresa May had already negotiated.
Yes, because this is, and people like David Gork and Philip Hammond have been saying it, this Brexit that Boris Johnson is now advocating comes with all sorts of implications for checks at the border at Calais.
Well, I can't stress this enough. Even after all these years of pointing out facts in the face of furious denial, he swore blind that what he's just agreed to would never happen.
Well, you played the clip from the DUP conference and from July.
Yes. But
that isn't the case, because, of course, whilst, and I've got the briefing here, Number 10, putting out and they're advocating, they're making the point that European Court of Justice supremacy comes to an end in Britain. And it does come to an end in Britain. He is fulfilling, Boris Johnson with this deal, is fulfilling obligations that when he said chuck checkers. The point, and he has tacked away. They also talk about, we will be in control of our taxes. We will be able to change VAT rules and other laws, tax laws that are currently determined in Brussels. That's not being said by Boris Johnson, but it's being put out by proponents of this deal, and that is correct, but not in Northern Ireland.
No. So, I mean, as ever, we're back to where we were when we first started talking about this 2 years ago. No deal, no Brexit, or a border in the Irish Sea.
Yes. So
I think the mistake we made was thinking that no one would actually we believed Theresa May and Boris Johnson when they said no British Prime Minister would countenance this.